Okay. Let me turn this down just a bit. So, we're going to watch this debate. It's about an hour long. Before we do that, I want to just get a refresher on the on the Biden administration's plan for student debt relief. Pretty much the very basic understanding that I have of it, and I haven't done a huge deep dive into it yet, is pretty much I want to say anyone making less than 125 single or 250 couples can get up to $10,000 of. Oh wait, let me lower this also a little bit. Get up to $10,000 of debt relief for what is it called? For $10,000 of debt relief for student loan debt that is government owned, government loans. So if you have a private loan with a bank, I don't think that's going to work. You're not going to get anything. And actually, let me share that screen. Okay. So my understanding. Put this over here. My understanding is that you get 10,000 for student loan relief for government loans, and I think up to 20,000 if you have Pell Grants, which I think Pell Grants are special grants for people that come from even either bad outcomes or don't have the money, worse financial outcomes than others. That's my understanding of Pell Grants. So that's my super basic understanding. I know there's other stuff about some states are going to force they're going to put tax on it. So if you got the 10,000 and you use it at the end of the year, you're probably going to have to say hey, did you get this tax benefit? Or they're going to use that as a tax benefit. Did you get this? Did you get this $10,000? And if so, we're going to tax some of it. I think some places are doing it as a sort of income, or if you get all 10,000, you have to pay a flat amount. That's what it seems. That's what it sounds like some states are going to do. But before I look at the debate where they're going to talk about this, I just want to do a brief overview. So I have a few articles up here that we can go through. I have it in chronological order. So I have things that were put out around the same time, and I think this is when it was first announced. So we're going to look first at what they said, what the White House was saying. So let's see here. 3 plan delivers President Biden's promise to cancel $10,000 of student debt for low to middle income borrowers. President Biden believes that a post-high school education should be a ticket to a middle-class life, but for too many, the cost of borrowing for college is a lifelong burden that deprives them of that opportunity. During the campaign, he promised to provide student debt relief, which he did. Yep. I don't think he ever said how much or what kind of debt relief. He definitely was advocating for some form of relief for it. I can't remember if he was also for free tuition. I don't know. He's following through with that promise and providing families breathing room as they prepare for start repaying loans after the economic crisis brought on by the pandemic. That's true. So during the pandemic, all loan payments were paused. You didn't have to do that, which means pretty much you didn't have to make payments and interest was not accruing. So that was cool. Since 1980, the total cost of both 4-year public and 4-year private college has nearly tripled. Yep, we've seen that a lot. Even after accounting for inflation, federal support has not kept up. Pell Grants once received the cost of a 4-year public college degree for students from working families, but now only cover a third. That has left many students from low and middle income families with no choice but to borrow if they want to get a degree. According to the Department of Education analysis, this typical undergrad student with loans now graduate with nearly $25,000 in debt. So this was, I guess I fall on this typical. I was around, I want to say between $25,000 to $30,000 in debt after I graduated college. But I went to a state school, and I went to a community college for a while. So I feel like I made out pretty well because I was just paying. I took out maybe 2 or 3 loans. No, I think it was 4 loans. I think it was 4 loans in total. And I came out with still around $25,000 to $30,000 in debt. They don't say anywhere here. What, did I miss it? Hold on. The Pell Grants once covered nearly 80%. So it doesn't really say. One thing to look at, I guess, would be, and I know I've heard this before, where it's like, sure, costs for college has gone up a lot, but I think the amount of money that you're going to be getting out of those, like out of those degrees, has also gone up quite a bit. So like depending on what degree you're going for and what you're going for college, I think the average college graduate earns like a decent more money than people without. I think your like earnings overall increase by a lot. I would have to double check that. That's my understanding though. So while it does cost a lot, you are hopefully making a good investment. Now you can get into the whole argument about should 18-year-olds be allowed to make that choice of putting themselves in a huge amount of debt like that? That's where it gets kind of iffy. But let's just keep going with what they say. Skyrocketing cumulative federal student loan debt, 1.6 trillion, and rising for more than 45 million borrowers. A significant burden on American middle class. Middle class borrowers struggle with high monthly payments, ballooning prices. Yep. Wealth like buying homes, putting away money for retirement. Yep. All of which, I mean, there are other ways to finance these things, of course, but I do understand that like buying homes, like just buying a home right now in general is also very hard for like most people, not just people who also have a huge debt. For the most vulnerable borrowers, the effects of debt are crushing. Yep, nearly 1/3 borrowers agree, according to analysis by Department of Education of recent cohort undergraduates. Many of these students could not complete their degree because of cost attendance. Okay. Wait, how many? Many of these students, about 16% of borrowers are in default, including nearly a third of senior citizens with student debt, which can result in government garnishing and borrowing wages or lowering borrowers' credit score. Black owners, 20 years after first enrolling in school, a typical black borrower who started college in 1995-1996 school year still owe 95% of their original student debt. Wait, what? I didn't know that. That's crazy. 20 years after first enrolling in school, the typical black borrower who started college in 1995-1996 school year still owed 95% of their original student debt after 20 years. That's crazy. Wow. President Biden announcing a three-part plan to provide more breathing room. Yep. This plan offers targeted debt relief as comprehensive efforts. Okay, let's see. Provide targeted debt relief to address the financial harms of the pandemic, fulfilling president's campaign commitment. The Department of Education will provide up to $20,000 in debt cancellation to Pell Grant recipients with loans held by the Department of Education, and up to $10,000 in debt cancellation to non-Pell Grant recipients. Borrowers are eligible for this relief if their individual income is less than $125,000. Yep, $250,000 for couples. No high income individual or high income household in the top 5% of incomes will benefit from this action. To ensure a smooth transition to repayment and prevent unnecessary defaults, the pause on federal student loan prepayment will be extended one final time through December 31st, 2022. Borrowers should expect to resume payments in January 2023. That makes sense. Okay, so they extended that thing about like pausing payments until January 2023, which is cool. I'm not too sure about the cost, like the limits that they're putting on here. Because I know when they were giving out, extra benefits or extra relief for like an extra like $2,000 or was it $4,000? An extra amount of X amount of money for the pandemic. I want to say the initial like cutoff was like 75,000. So I am curious about the increase up to 125 to just get more people. And I don't know. I'm very biased when it comes to this, only because I definitely think that it needs to be means tested in the sense of like only the people that actually need it should be getting these kind of like these reliefs. And I'm coming from like a pretty decent point of privilege, but like I technically almost have paid off all my loans, and I technically don't need this. I'm definitely gonna take it, of course. I'm definitely gonna like ask, hey, can you guys finish up my my debt? But I don't make anywhere near $125,000. So I mean, I'm just coming from like a point of privilege, being like, hey, I technically wouldn't need this. So I'm a little biased when I see like, do people at 125,000 that are making that much income actually need $10,000 of debt relief? Maybe, maybe not. I would have to look at the numbers for that. So I'm biased there. To ensure a smooth transition to payment defaults, the pause on federal. Oh yeah, I read that. Make the student loan system more manageable for current and future borrowers by cutting monthly payments in half for undergraduate loans, Education is proposing a new income-driven repayment plan that protects more low-income borrowers from making any payments and caps the monthly payments. 5% of borrowers. Okay. This means that the average annual student loan payment will be lowered by more than $1,000 for both current and future borrowers. That's pretty okay. Make it easier to. So they'll be paying it off longer, but it makes it more manageable, which is fine. Fixing the Browsing Public Service Loan Forgiveness (PSLF) program by proposing a rule that borrowers who have worked. So I remember this. If you work in like a public service or for the government, it's either for public service or for, I forget how it works. But if you work for like 10 years in some form of field, they will just forgive your debt completely. I think that's what this PSLF is. Proposing a rule that borrowers who have worked at a nonprofit, in the military, or in federal, state, tribal, or local government receive appropriate credit towards loan forgiveness. These improvements will build a temporary change the Department of Education has already made at PSLF, under which more than 175,000 public servants have already had more than $10 billion in loan forgiveness approved. Okay, so they're not telling me how they're fixing it, but appropriate credit towards. I guess maybe there were some ways where people could be like working in this in the first amount of PM, but because of either changes of position or something, it doesn't actually count. So maybe making sure that they get the proper credit. That makes sense. They're not telling me how they're going to do it. Protect future students and taxpayers by reducing the cost of college and holding schools accountable when they hike up prices. The president championed the largest increase to Pell Grants in over a decade and one of the largest one-time influx in college and universities. To further reduce the cost of college, the president will continue to fight to double the maximum Pell Grant and make community college free. Okay, so he is still trying to get community college free. Meanwhile, colleges have an obligation to keep prices reasonable and ensure borrowers get value for their investment, not debt they cannot afford. This administration has already taken key steps to strengthen accountability. So I'm curious about how they would determine this. The first thing that comes to my mind is like, are they going to look at schools and look at the people that graduate from the schools and look at what kind of income they normally get? Because I mean, if a school is proposing like, hey, 90% of our people graduate from 90% of our graduates get into a position of their college and make like X amount of money. Well, I guess that's your choice of investment then. And then you have to, I guess the government's going to step in and be like, hey, you're saying that people are going to make $120,000 a year or whatever. Let's say that if that's true, and if it is true, you can only charge this amount for your tuition. I don't know how they would draw those lines, but I mean, it's possible. They could definitely do it. People can come to those decisions. Provide targeted debt relief fulfilling the president's campaign commitment. To address the financial harms of the pandemic for low middle income borrowers, to avoid defaults as loan repayments starts next year, the Department of Education will provide up to $20,000. Okay, yep. Visual income of less than 100. Yep. Okay, we already read that. Received a Pell Grant. Yep. Nearly every Pell Grant recipient came from a family that made less than $60,000 a year. Yep. So people more financially in peril. Pell Grant recipients typically express challenges for paying their debt other than borrowers. Borrowers who meet those income standards but did not receive a Pell Grant in college can receive up to $10,000 on loan. Cool. Some families, nearly all. Yeah, that is a huge amount of people. Well, a huge percentage of people that get the Pell Grants. But I'm curious how many people got Pell Grants. I think they said that up there, that it got cut a lot, but I'm just curious how many people. The Pell Grant program is one of America's most effective financial aid programs, but its value has been eroded over time. Pell Grant recipients are more than 60% of the borrower's population. Okay. 60% of borrowers use Pell Grants, and most Pell Grants people are less than $60,000 a year. That makes sense. That's good. That's going to be going mostly towards them. Meet their economic potential. That's good. Current students with loans are eligible for the debt relief. Borrowers who are dependent students will be eligible for relief based on parental. Wait. Current students with loans are eligible for this debt relief. Borrowers who are dependent students. Okay. So these are people who are still going to school, people who have graduated and probably are no longer considered dependents under their parents. This won't go for them. But if they are, it will go under their parents' income. Okay, that makes sense. If all borrowers claim the relief they are entitled to, these actions will provide relief up to 43 million borrowers, including cancellation of the full remaining balance for roughly 20 million borrowers. So half of them will just have it fully removed. Almost half. Target relief dollars to low middle income borrowers. The Department of Education estimates that among borrowers who are no longer in school, nearly 90% of relief dollars will go to earning less than $75,000 a year. Okay, so only 10. So there's an extra 10% being helped between that, and that's what I was thinking. Like the $75,000 thing was like what they used last time, or maybe it was 70,000 for the last relief plan that they had. So it looks like they're hitting an extra 10% of people by increasing it to 120. No individual making more than $120,000 or household making the United States will receive relief. Help borrowers of all ages. Department of Education estimates that among borrowers who are eligible for relief, 21% are 25 years and under, 45% are between 26 and 39, more than a third of borrowers are age 40 and up, including 5% of borrowers who are senior citizens. So there's 5% of people who are senior citizens that this will help. Cool. Advanced racial equity. By turning relief to borrowers with the highest economic need, the administration's actions are likely to help narrow the racial wealth gap. Black students are more likely to have to borrow from school and more likely to take out larger loans. Black borrowers are twice as likely to have received Pell Grants compared to the white peers. Other borrowers of color are also more likely than their peers to receive Pell Grants. This is why Urban Institute study found that debt forgiveness programs targeting those who receive Pell Grants while in college will advance racial equity. Nice. So it sounds like the Pell Grant, like if they would just focus on the Pell Grant people, well, again, I don't know what this other guy's going to argue against for the student loan relief, but I think the people who would argue against helping the people who have got Pell Grants, the only thing I can see them say is like they already got these loans and like these really good loans that they're hopefully going to be paid back. But I mean, it's going to be like it said, it's going to help people that are already like in a shit situation or have worse outcomes. The Department of Education will work quickly and efficiently to set up a simple application process for borrowers to claim relief. The application will be available no later than when the pause on federal student loan repayments terminates at the end of the year. Nearly 8 million borrowers may be eligible to receive relief automatically because their reinvestment income data is already available to the department. Thanks to the department, the American Rescue Plan, the debt relief will not be treated as taxable income. Okay. Thanks to the American Rescue Plan, the debt relief will not be treated as taxable income for the federal income. Okay, for federal income tax purposes. Okay, that's what I was about to say, because I know I definitely heard states saying that they would be taxing it. To help ensure a smooth transition back to repayment, the Department of Education extending the student loan pause a final time. Yep, okay, right. For fixing the single current future borrowers. The administration is reforming student loan repayment plans so both current and future low middle income borrowers will have smaller and more manageable monthly payments. The Department of Education has the authority to create income-driven repayment plans, which cap the borrowers pay each month based on a percentage of their discretionary income. Most of these plans cancel borrowers' remaining debt once they make 20 years of monthly payments. So we're extending the amount of time they'll be paying, but if they have been paying their plan properly, they make 20 years of monthly payments, it will just get canceled. Most of these plans cancel a borrower's remaining debt, but the existing version of these plans are too complex and too limited. As a result, millions of borrowers who might benefit from them do not sign up, and the millions who do sign up are still often left with unmanageable monthly payments. Okay, to address these concerns and follow through the Congress original version, do the following. For undergraduate loans, so for people who have loans for undergraduates, cut in half the amount that borrowers have to pay each month, from 10% to 5% of discretionary income. Okay, so you only pay 5% of your income. Raise the amount of income that is considered non-discretionary income and therefore is protected from prepayment, guaranteeing that no borrower earning under 225% of the federal poverty level, about the annual equivalent of $15 minimum wage for a single borrower, will have to make a monthly payment. Okay, so if you are guaranteeing that no borrower earning under 225% of the federal poverty level, so if you're earning, and they say about the annual equivalent of $15 minimum wage. So if you're making less or around $15 an hour, and that will come out to a similar amount of yearly income, you will not have to make monthly payments. If you're not making monthly payments, about the annual equivalent will have to make a monthly payment. Not making a monthly payment, is it just being fully forgiven at that point then? Forgive loan balances after 10 years of payments. Instead of 20 years for borrowers with original loan balances of $12,000 or less, the Department of Education has said that this reform will allow nearly all community college borrowers to be debt-free within 10 years. Okay, I'm a little confused because all it is, well, let me read the last statement first. Cover the borrower's unpaid monthly interest. So that, unlike other existing income-driven repayment plans, no borrower's loans balance will grow as long as they make their monthly payments, even when the monthly payment is $0 because their income is low. Cover the borrower. So yeah, it looks like they would just be fully forgiven for those people after 10 years if they stay in that stage. Which, I mean, sure. And it looks like it's only $12,000 if the loan was $12,000 or less. Okay. These reforms would simply loan repayment and deliver significant savings to low and middle class. A typical single construction worker making $38,000 a year with a construction management credential would pay only $31 a month compared to the $147 they pay now under the most recent income-driven repayment plan for annual savings of nearly $1,400. Nice. A typical single public school teacher with the undergraduate degree making $44,000 a year would pay only $56 a month in their lows compared to the $197 they pay now under their most recent income-driven repayment plan for annual savings of nearly $1,700. Another example, a typical nurse making $77,000 a year who is married with 2 kids would pay only $61 a month instead of the $295 they pay now, with an annual savings of around $2,800. Nice. Okay, so pretty much like we said earlier, just making it easier to pay back your loans. And then looking like it forgive if your loan is below $12,000 or less. Or with an original, where is it? It said original loan was $12,000 or less. So not if you've gotten below that point. Okay, so then we have just like a little graphic for it. For each of these borrowers, their balances would not grow as long as they are making their monthly repayments, and the remaining debt would be forgiven after they make the required number of qualifying payments. Cool. Further, the Department of Education will make it easier for borrowers who are enrolled in this new plan to stay enrolled. Starting in the summer of 2023, borrowers will be able to allow the Department of Education to automatically pull their income information year after year, avoiding the hassle of needing to... Okay, that's awesome. That is one thing that we should do for like all of our tax stuff. They already have a bunch of this fucking information. And as long as we give them, what's it called? The authority or the permission to look at it and use it, I should easily be able to say like, hey, you can always see my income because I'm reporting this shit. You guys are keeping track of it. You know what I have. Enroll me in this automatically if I stay here. And it should be as simple as that. And I shouldn't have to go through all the hassle of being like, hey, here's my income this year. I would like to apply for this. Hey, here's my income this year. I would like to apply for this. It should be a one-time click. As long as I'm in this income level, please just automatically do it for me. Borrowers working in the public service are entitled to earn credit towards debt relief under the public service, the PSLF program. But because of the complex eligibility restrictions, historic implementation failures, and poor counseling given to borrowers, many borrowers have not received the credit they deserve for the public service. Department of Education has announced timely changes to PSLF program to provide an easier path of forgiveness for all outstanding debt for eligible federal student loan borrowers who have served a nonprofit, for at least 10 years, including Those who have served less than 10 years may now more easily get credit for their service to date towards eventual forgiveness. These changes now allow eligible borrowers to gain additional credit towards forgiveness, even if they had been told previously that they had the wrong loan type. Education has proposed regular changes to ensure a more effective implementation of the PSL program. Moving forward, specifically, the Department of Education has proposed allowing more payments to qualify people, late payments, allowing certain kinds of deferments for bonus, such as those for Peace Corps. Okay. Rules of work. Non-turned instructors. Okay. Sure, borrowers are aware of the temporary changes. The White House has launched the PSL days of action dedicated to borrowers in specific sectors, government employees. Okay, trying to get the word out there that you can do this. Okay. From steep increasing college. So I'm curious about what they say about this. Like, how are they going to stop colleges from increasing costs? While providing this relief to low minimum, the president is focused on keeping college costs under control. Under the administration, students have had more money in their pockets to pay for college. Under this administration, students have had more. The president signed the largest increase in maximum Pell Grants in over a decade, and provided nearly $40 billion to colleges and universities to the American Rescue Plan, much of which has been used for emergency student financial aid, allowing students to breathe a little easier. Cool. Additionally, the Department of Education has already taken significant steps to strengthen accountability so that students are not left with mountains of debt with little payoff. The agency has reestablished the enforcement unit in the Office of Federal Student Aid and is holding accreditors feet to the fire. In fact, the department just withdrew authorization for the accreditor that oversaw schools responsible for some of the worst for-profit scandals. Agency will so I think they're talking about. I don't remember. I think they're talking about schools that would like boast about like what they could get, and then all it was like, you're probably not gonna get your money back on this like degree that you got. It was strictly like, yo, we just want to get your money, and then we'll send you off with this degree, but good luck finding a place to work. We're not here for that. The industry will also propose a rule to hold career programs accountable for leaving their graduates with balance of debt they cannot pay. They're not going to pay, a rule the previous administration repealed. The agency will also provide a rule to hold career programs accountable for leaving their graduates. I don't know how they're going to do that. I don't understand. Building off of those efforts, the Department of Education is announcing new actions to hold accountable colleges that have contributed to the student debt crisis. This includes publishing an annual watch list of the programs with the worst debt levels in the country so that students registering for the next academic year can steer clear of programs with such poor outcomes. Okay, that's cool. They also include requesting institutional improvement plans from the worst actors that outline how colleges with the most concerning debt outcomes intend to bring down debt levels. Okay, so giving out like information about like, hey, if you're going to this field at this school, you can expect this much debt, and these are the people that have graduated with this, and this is how much debt they still have. That's good to know. Okay. So that was the initial, thing that came out back in August last month. So let's take a look at. So this is a rebuttal. This is AP News just talking about it. We can just say they'll probably just go through. Let me see how long this is. I mostly want to do this one, and we have two like more up to date ones. I might not do this one. What they were read? Wait. I might look at this because I'm just curious. Yeah, I might look at that. So yeah, so this will hopefully give us a rundown and maybe explain some things that I was a little unsure of. Myself. I mean, I'm going to block some of it. It doesn't matter. New York AP. Under a new plan announced by President Joe Biden, many Americans can have up to $10,000 federal student loan debt forgiveness. Amount increased to $20,000 for Pell Grants. Here's what we know. Okay, who qualifies for student loan forgiveness? You qualify for up to $10,000 by the Department of Education, and if you make less than $125,000, yep. If you receive Pell Grants, yep. You can have $20,000. If you're a current borrower, the department student, you will be eligible for relief based on your parents' income rather than your own. Yep. Loan repayment be freezed or extended. Yep, they're extending it to the 31st. Interest rates will remain at 0% until payments start. Cool, we already knew that. How do I apply? Details have not been given yet. I think since then, details have been given. I think they're going to be releasing that in October. You're going to have to sign up for it. Does graduate student debt qualify? Yes, federal student loans taken out cover graduate degrees, qualify for forgiveness. Cool. What if my student loan balance includes a lot of interest? The interest itself is considered part of the balance for purposes of this program. Forgiveness will remove $10,000 from the total balance you owe. Okay, so like if it's accrued, so any interest that's been accruing, that has accrued, that you still have to pay off over your original loan, that will be included. It's not just going to be the, I forget what they call it, the default loan. Because it's possible that maybe you actually still have interest to pay off, but you paid off the initial, like say you took out $10,000, but you accrued like another $10,000 of interest. So you're paying $20,000 off. If you already paid the initial $10,000 off and now you're just paying off the interest, then this would still cover that. Will I have to pay taxes on the amount of forgiven? No. Congress, well, okay, let's see what they say. No, Congress eliminated taxes on loan forgiveness through 2025. It's possible some states could tax, yeah. Yep. It's not clear if they will happen, yeah. And some states have already said they will do this. Do Parent Plus loans qualify? Parent Plus loans are included in the forgiveness plan subject to the same $250,000 income cap for families that applies to the rest of the cancellation. Parent Plus loans differ from other federal education loans in that they can go towards covering expenses other than tuition, such as books, room and board, college students. As of March 2023, parents of 3.6 million students owe more than $107 billion of Parental Plus loans. According to the Department of Education, that represents about 6% of the total amount of federal student debt held by Americans. Parent received a Parent Plus loan on behalf of a student and the same student received a direct loan, both would receive relief. Oh, okay. As the cancellation is on per borrower, not a per student basis. This means that each person who has educational department held federal student loans meets the income requirement qualifies for cancellation. Oh, that's cool. Good for them. What's a Pell Grant and how do I know if I have one? Roughly 27 million borrowers who qualified for Pell Grants will be eligible to receive up to $20,000 forgiveness under President Biden. Pell Grants are special government scholarships for low-income Americans who currently receive up to $6,895 annually for roughly 6 years. Okay. Every Pell Grant received from a family that made less than $60,000 a year for education, which is said Pell Grants recipients typically experience more challenging repaying debt. Yeah. Pell Grants themselves don't generally have to be back, but recipients typically take out additional student loans. Pell Grants themselves don't generally have to be paid back. Oh yeah, because they're grants. What am I saying? If you still have loans though, and you were eligible for Pell Grants, is my understanding is how that works. Wait, no, I'm being dumb. I think some grants you have to do. I don't know. I'm talking on my ass now. Nearly every Pell Grant recipient came from a family that made less than $60,000 a year, according to the Department of Education, which said Pell Grant recipients typically experience more challenge. Yep, Pell Grants themselves don't generally. There's no relief for Pell borrowers. Also, is an important piece of racial equity. Yep. So this is about talking about like getting out to different minorities in America. Borrower protection center because student debt exacerbates existing inequalities. Inequities. The racial wealth gap means that students of color, especially those that are Black and Latino, are more likely to come from low wealth households, have student debt, and borrow higher quantities. I don't know if they have a Pell Grant. Check any emails fast support. Yeah. 43 million Americans have federal student debt with an average balance of $37,667 according to federal data. A third of those owe less than $10,000. Half of those less than $20,000. The total amount of federal student debt is more than $1.6 trillion. What if I already paid off my student loans? Will I see relief? Debt forgiveness is expected to apply only to those currently holding student debt. But if you voluntarily made payments since March 2020, when payments were paused, you can request a refund for those payments according to the federal. Okay, that's so people who have been making payments since the pandemic, you can still get. That's cool. I did not know that. I did not know about this part. Don't know necessarily how I feel about that because it might still make people. I don't know. The only thing that gives me pause is because there are already people really upset for really dumb reasons. I think I hate it when people say, "What about people that already paid off their loans? What about people prior? What about the old generation?" It's like, oh, come on, dude. If we're gonna make any progress, some people are gonna get the short end of the stick sometimes in that scenario. If we want to change things, we can't look back and be like, it wasn't changed for the prior people, so therefore we can't change it for the new people. Like, come on. Will student loan forgiveness definitely happen? The White House could face lawsuits over the plan because Congress has never given the president the explicit authority to cancel debt. The Biden administration is trying to authority to the coronavirus pandemic and to a 2003 law aimed at providing help to members of the military. We don't know how any legal action. Okay, so, and to my knowledge, this hasn't been challenged yet in like fully disputed. So, as of what we can tell, it's still going to go through. What repayment plan is the Department of Education proposing? The Department of Education is proposing a repayment plan that would cap monthly payments. Yep, about 5%. It's 10%. Borrowers would need to apply for the repayment plan if it's approved, which could take a year or more. For example, under proposal, a single borrower making $38,000 would pay $31 a month, according to a government press release. The amount considered non-discretionary income will also be increased through the department. It has not said how much. Discretionary income usually refers to what you have left after covering necessities like food. Okay. Yep. For student loan repayment purposes, calculated using a formula that takes into account the difference between a borrower's annual income and the federal poverty line, along with family size and geographical location. What's tough about income-driven repayment is that it does not take into account your other liabilities, such as your rent payment. So Kristen, whatever, financial counselor at Your Money Line, which provides financial literacy training. If someone's living paycheck to paycheck and their rent is taking up half of their paycheck, and then their cap takes the other half, seems like a lot. They have to choose. Unfortunately, income-driven repayment doesn't take that into consideration, but it is an option. Discretionary income. What if I can't afford to pay even with loan forgiveness? Once payments resume, borrowers who can't pay risk delinquency. Wait, is it? Oh, defaulting. Yeah. That can hurt your credit rating and mean you're not eligible for additional aid. Suddenly pay, check to qualify. Yeah, you can find it. Okay. Planning by announced Wednesday also includes a proposal that would allow people with undergraduate loans to cap repayment at 5% for their monthly income. They already said that. Proposals like this one can take a year or more. Yeah, we already said that. If you've worked in the government agency, not probably. Okay, yeah, they're talking about the PSL thing. Okay. So that went just over what the White House said. So nothing hugely new information. A bit more information on non-discretionary income. I was a little. That's what I thought. If it was about like, hey, this is non-discretionary things that you don't have to use for necessities, and a bit more about Pell Grants and like who they go to. So these are both from September 6th. So not too much information after it. Let me just do a quick scan through here. How much debt can cancel? We already know. Which loans qualify? We already know. What if I owe less than forgiven? They're at least capped. Okay. Student loans taken out after June 30th won't be included in the relief. Do I have to do anything to get forgiveness? The ALTO. I'll forget for taxes, so. Yeah. Student loan forgiveness won't trigger a federal tax bill. It's because the American Rescue Plan. You may, however, still be on the hook for state taxes. Yeah, we already know this. Taking a photo or screenshot of your current student loan balance. That way you can make sure it drops by the correct amount once forgiveness happens. Okay. I mean, if you don't know how much you have right now, it's a little worrisome. What's the timeline here? So for 8 weeks after it's all necessary information to borrow until their debt is discharged. Deadline. December 31st, 2023. Oh, you have over a year. I mean, I thought it was ending at the end of this year. Could forgiveness fall through from legal challenge? It's possible. Yep. Okay. Although no lawsuit has been brought up yet, GOP attorneys general from states such as Arizona, Missouri, and Texas, as well as Senator Ted Cruz, and wait, it said Texas, so we know Senator Ted Cruz was part of this. And those connected to conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, are considering their options when it comes to trying to block loan forgiveness, according to reading the Washington Post. The uncertainty for borrowers in the meantime, I'm afraid, is considered as a Harvard law professor. The issue could make it way to the Supreme Court. In the meantime, borrowers are still encouraged to apply for the relief, of course. What's going on with the payment pause? Yep. Okay, we already know this. Okay, so nothing huge new information there. Let me just skim through this. This is talking about questions about the student debt forgiveness. What is the rationale behind it? I guess this will be interesting just to see someone's perspective. Ease the burden of individual, primarily younger individuals who are saddled with unmanageable student debt and are forced to delay other repayments. However, one might ask why the special focus on the burden of student debt as opposed to other forms of debt. So, before I read on, I wonder what people would say. I guess one thing to think about, like why student debt specifically, would be we don't want to dissuade, and we don't want to challenge or make it harder for someone to necessarily like better themselves. So if we have like a wall in the way of someone who's trying to better themselves and like become better assets to society, then why do we want to put this giant wall in the way? You could argue that maybe we want this wall in the way just so that we can make sure that we weed out the ones that would definitely benefit us. But I think just having overall a more educated, better equipped society in general is always going to be positive, even if some people might take advantage of that benefit. I think that overall makes everything like better for us all. So I guess focusing on student loan debt. I mean, if you want to be cynical, maybe they're focused on student loan forgiveness because of their constituents. Well, okay, there's two ways to look at it. One, they could be doing it like, hey, we know that most Democratic voters are college graduates. The higher education that someone has, the more likely to vote Democrat. The younger someone is, the more likely they are to be Democrat. So if we hit both of these at the same time, we could increase, like, get our name out and be like, yo, look what we're doing for you guys. But on the flip side, if you want to look at it cynically like that, it could also be like, okay, well, they were voted in by their constituents. If their constituents are those people, that group of people, the young college graduates, and they want this to be done, then you're just doing what your constituents want. That's the whole point of a representative democracy. It's like we put people in place to do things that we want them to do. So if people are asking for this, then you go and do it. Okay. Newspaper rife with stories of families unable to service manageable mortgage debt, automotive debt, or medical debt, and therefore facing foreclosure, repossession of a car, loss of livelihood, and even bankruptcy. Fall of these debt, certainly bankruptcy in the future. However, the federal government generally has not supported widespread debt forgiveness for these classes of debt, even during times of crisis. Additionally, individuals who take on student debt are thought to have received something of great value in return. Yes. So this is the thing that the other people didn't mention, and I don't know the numbers in this. But when you go to college and you get a degree, you are giving yourself something of high value. You are increasing your earnings by, well, your potential earnings are increased by quite a lot. Now, whether or not you're actually going to get those potential earnings is in question, of course. But you're like putting yourself in debt for a good outcome at the end. That's the goal. Individuals who take student debt are thought to have received something of great value in return, namely a college education. Economists estimate that in return on a college degree is hundreds of thousands of dollars, which more than offsets the average debt burden of $30,000. So yep, even they mentioned like the average debt is $30,000 after all that. Given these background facts, what explains the national focus on the student debt burden? Likely reflects the confluence of three factors: the size of the outstanding student debt burden, which is the largest single category of individual debt, the pace with which this debt has grown, having grown from 0.5 trillion in 2006 to currently 1.7 trillion. So student loan debt was 0.5 trillion in 2006 and has gone up by more than $1 trillion in less than 20 years. And the fact that the student debt is associated for many people with extraordinary rapid rise in cost of college education. Additionally, the vision of student debt repaying for a college degree must confront with reality what the 4-year college completion rate is only around 60%. Oh, I did not know that. I know that only 60% of people that go to college actually finish. And much lower for disadvantaged minorities. Even when we consider those who move from 4-year bachelor degree programs to 2-year associate's degree, analysts estimate that more than 1/4 of those who start college drop out with no credentials. Therefore, much of the student debt is held by individuals who either did not complete the college or had borrowed to train for vocational jobs in which the compensation would not allow for repayment of debt during reasonable working life. Finally, the average size of a defaulted loan is under $10,000, suggesting that the dire financial lives for those for whom student debt forgiveness is most relevant. The average size of a defaulted loan is under $10,000. I didn't know that either. So it defaults when you stop making payments on it, when you can't make payments on it. And apparently all you have left is $10,000. I say all you have, but that's a lot to some people. So this would help. That helps them a lot. Especially because, like they said, like the negative repercussions of defaulting on a loan are pretty high. Especially in the dire financial lives for those who, for these reasons, it might be a reasonable policy choice to forgive the student debt for a select group of the most needy borrowers. This leads directly to the second policy question: who benefits and who pays? So yeah, the idea of helping people in those situations, I completely agree on. Like I said, I'm already kind of biased with the limit that they're putting up to about $125,000. I'm like, do those people necessarily need this extra benefit? Some might, but I always wish we could fine tone all of these policies more specifically to the people that definitely need it. And I know that's an impossible thing at the end of the day. Like, we can't ever get every single person. Some people are either going to slip through the cracks, or some people are going to benefit that probably didn't need it. And in those cases, I would probably lean on the side of I'd rather us help more people that don't deserve it than have more people slip through the cracks. So I can agree with that perspective. The Biden program will forgive $10,000 of debt for individuals earning less than $125,000 income and $250,000 income married couple. In 2020 and 2021 tax year, $20,000. As many as 40 million individuals will benefit, with 20 million people having their debt fully wiped out. The estimated cost of this one-time program is between $300 and $500 billion. Okay. So wait, no. Am I stupid? Not almost half. Close to half. It would have to be like if it's between at the upper end, if it's 500 billion, not even half of the total debt relief, not even half of the total debt, because it's like 1.7, but it would lower by quite a lot. Since there is no provision for special funding mechanism, all taxpayers will bear the brunt of this federal budget expense. Put another way, 320 million Americans are providing a benefit to 40 million Americans in this regard. Critics have argued that even if the Biden forgiveness program is a responsible policy choice, it is overly broad. Okay, so this is maybe hitting on my biases and saying what I was thinking. The $125,000 upper limit on individual income and double for a couple seems particularly generous. Yep. When one knows that some potentially lucrative professionals such as law, accounting, medicine, consultant in many states have starting salaries that fall below that level. Additionally, yeah, and that's what I was feeling. Okay. But like I said, I would want to lean more on making sure that we catch everyone, catch more people than necessary, than lose people that actually do need it. Additionally, having had a Pell Grant as a college student does not necessarily correlate with having chosen a low-paying career. The fact that loans, sure, but I think that what they were saying with Pell Grants is the people that, so like we want to make sure we hit up everyone with a Pell Grant because the majority of people with Pell Grants came from like already maybe like low-income families, and that's already going to be a burden on you. So this is just like helping that burden. Like people who took the same career choice as you probably didn't have nearly as much like baggage that you have because you were able to receive that Pell Grant. And you could argue that the Pell Grant, that's why the Pell Grant's there to help that person, but maybe they think that that's not enough. The fact that loans incurred before July 2022 are eligible under the Biden administration means that many current students and graduates will benefit regardless of their long-term potential to pay their debts fully. One of having a $125,000 income cutoff is that roughly 30% of the benefit occurs to borrowers in the bottom 40% of the income distribution, the top 60%. So they're saying, I always hate these numbers. I'm very much a visual person when it comes to this kind of stuff, but the result of having a 125,000 income cutoff is that roughly 30% of the benefit occurs to borrowers at the bottom 40% of the income distribution, and the remaining 70% is going to those in the top 60%. So most of this money, it sounds like, from if I'm reading this right, out of the whole benefit, 30% is going to the people at the 40% bottom, people who make less, like way less than $125,000 a year, so people on the lower end, and 70%, the majority of this benefit, is going to people in the top 60%, so people closer to the 125. Now, I don't know how they draw those lines between like, I'm assuming they just look at the 60% of 125, so like everyone making more than 50% would be around 63. So around people around the around $70,000 range. Surely more modest income cutoff, perhaps 62,000 for individuals and 120,000 would have made the policy more targeted for those who are most in need. True. I mean, kind of. I think so. That's what I feel. Additionally, the fact that this is one-time forgiveness leaves almost all observers deeply dissatisfied. Individuals graduating just a few years apart, otherwise similar. Again, this is a way to help people going into it, but they do have plans, broader plans, to help those people. So the policy still tries to like hit on that. It tries to hit on that still. Overall, if one were to conclude that a student debt forgiveness is an acceptable policy choice, the answer to the second question of who pays and who benefits is still troubling for many observers. Given this, much depends on the third question, unintended consequences. True. What are the consequences that could come from this? The debate regarding unintended consequences has centered on the question of whether this program adds to inflationary pressures at a time when inflation is already running well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Okay. At some point, I'll also have to look at the inflation shit. The Biden proposal of debt forgiveness is paired in resumption of student debt payments in January 23 after a 2-year pause. The consensus of most, but certainly not all analysts, is that the impact of forgiveness on inflation is likely to be offset by most borrowers resuming payments when the student loan pause ends in January. Not surprising, though, analysts who calculate the potential inflation find some modest impact of a 0.2-0.3% increase in inflation if student debt forgiveness did not occur at all. So it would increase even if there wasn't. Okay. But not by a lot. But they're not telling me the difference. Oh, wait. No, it's not telling me what they think it will be now. Debt forgiveness did not occur critically. All these estimates depend on assumptions of the program of eligible individuals who successfully have their debt forgiven and those who comply fully with the intention of repayment in January. Clearly, this is unknowable currently. However, there is additional uncertainty. Debt is part of a household wealth, while repayment influences cash flow. Economics have only an incomplete understanding of how an increase in wealth from forgiveness of debt will impact consumption. The wealth effect from an extra dollar of housing wealth is estimated at roughly 4%. Additional surveys related to student debt forgiveness suggest a frugal mindset among federal student loan borrowers. More than half of those surveyed, 50%, indicate that they would use the extra money to pay off other loans. 45% indicate that they would save for retirement, and 41% they would invest the money. Okay, don't care about that. Okay. Oh, this is not as long as I thought it was. Overall, one might argue that student loan forgiveness might well be a reasonable policy position. However, the Biden program might be overly generous, particularly given the strongest argument for which program is to help the neediest. Finally, while very capable analysts have argued that there is an increased risk of inflation, the most troubling estimates are relatively small given the magnitude of the inflation challenge, and there are some reasons to believe that much of the extra cash will further reduce financial stress. More importantly, the fundamental weakness of the American higher education system, low completion rate, true, depends on loans and rapidly increasing college costs, still need to be addressed. So, yes, getting people to go into college, that take out those loans, hopefully finish it all. That's one major thing. The dependency on those loans, so people that need those loans to go into college, is something to focus on, and rapidly increasing college costs. I think from what it sounds like their plan is, the dependency on the loans doesn't seem to be changing. People who still need loans will still need to take them. It would just be much easier for them to get it. It'll be much easier for them to pay it off, and easier for them to get forgiven if they pay it off over a certain time period. So it doesn't really hit this at all. It says it's going to hit the rapidly increasing college costs by forcing schools to take into consideration what you're getting out of that college, like the amount of debt most people get out of there, and what kind of positions they go into after. So it kind of hits on this, and the low completion rate, I don't think it hits on at all either. So these two things doesn't hit on at all, at least this policy. The increasing college costs it does talk about, and it would try to do. Okay, I'm glad I read this. I think that's good. So we spent an hour kind of just refreshing ourselves on what this could be. So now that we have like a little update, I'm going to go grab a drink, and then we're going to go over the debate. So let me change the video.